do with one instead of two, and he would make up the difference himself. And because the lifeguard salary line was so over budget this year, he had to increase that line. So rather than just increase the salaries for the lifeguards, he's taking it from another place and to make do with one part-time employee.
That line was 18,000, wasn't it, something like
Yes.
that?
Mhm. And this would bring it up to 21,500.
But that doesn't answer the question if he's gonna just use 3 lifeguards. or
Yeah, I
4.
don't, he didn't give me an answer on that. He just said they were still looking at it. I mean, there's a few days left. Oh, there's more than a few days left because we have the public hearing next week and we can still continue to make changes after that. So if you want to wait until you have more information to make this decision.
Did we include 4 lifeguard salaries in the budget?
I think that's what he did. He calculated that number, not me. I think.
And
he
I remember
included
playing
4.
with the numbers, if they went down to 3, it wouldn't have amounted to the 18,000, it would have been less than that, but the 4 goes over it, so it doesn't sound to me like he's removed the
Mm-mm.
4th lifeguard yet,
No.
and we did ask him to check into that, so that question basically.
So we'll
wasn't
just
answered.
hold off on this then. I'll
Yeah.
follow up with him tomorrow.
My only other question with recreation is, I know it's dangerous to talk about, when the money going to the center, there was 15,000 at 400, was it $400 a month?
It's
Was
483.33.
Yeah, that doesn't add up to the 15,000. I didn't
Bus
know
trips,
what the rest was for.
bus trips,
Bus trips?
yes.
Have there been any bus trips?
I don't
Well,
think
not
I've
this
paid
year.
it. No.
Of course, COVID. But in the past, yes.
So that money, unspent money, would just go back into the fund?
Yes, we'll make up for some of the revenue we will be getting.
Are you sure we're operating?
No, we're recording, but are you ready to go live?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that's what you meant when you meant like.
Well, it's recording.
Okay, and you got the little thing in there too.
Yeah, that's the part. Yeah.
It's better than me. Please. Yeah, you can put us on.
Okay.
So the other thing I wanted to say was today I got the third quarter sales tax revenue check. And it's $235,000, which is higher than I expected it to be.
Nice.
Our second quarter check was $163,000. And this one is $235,000.
What's that compared to last year, Kelly? Do you know?
Last year was, the third quarter was $250,000.
Oh, it's only down 20 then. Okay.
I think that's from opening up all the restaurants and
So-
bars, that's what did it.
Yeah, that's, that was very encouraging. I was happy to see that. Okay. All right. So next then after the library is the Lake District. Richie, do you want to talk about the Lake District? Their budget was $46,000 for the 2020, and we dropped it down to $42,000.
So, in our conversations, if I remember, and we're live, there has been by changing to, is it direct energy that we have?
It is direct energy.
From Constellation, or I
Yes.
forget all that stuff.
Yep, I have.
But there's been a pretty, a notable to substantial savings
Mhm.
on the lights to where I think you projected we'll probably spend $34,000 for the whole year,
Yes,
supply and delivery,
right.
all things included, down from what was close to $48,000 a couple of years ago when we
Right.
first started on the board. There we go. So based upon that, I think that we're absolutely safe to drop it down to the 42,000.
I would agree.
Justin's not here, that didn't go, we didn't have our day in court yet on that whole matter, did we? The LED lighting?
No,
I don't think
no,
we've been there yet, so that's
No.
all frozen, I realize that, that's all just as a temporary restraining order. And I think you said that the light district has like $50,000 in a reserve or something like that?
Fund balance,
Fund balance.
yes.
Part of me is tempted to say spend the fund balance and have no expenditures on the lights for the year, but I don't know how that works as far as the repercussions for next year,
Then you have a big increase.
Yeah.
so.
Then you have a big increase. The light district has. Yeah, well, I'm projecting 59,000 at the end of this year.
59,000 of fund balance.
Yes.
And a projected $34,000 expense, everything for the year.
Yes.
Okay.
34.
If you feel like knocking the 42 down, be my guest.
We could probably bring it down to 40,
I think
because if
40.
there's an increase in the utilities, we have enough fund balance to cover it if there's
Yeah.
an increase.
I'm good with that.
Good 40. Yeah.
All right, the next one is the town historian, and she, as usual, is asking for no increase. She only has 2 lines, her salary, and she has $900 of other expenses, which is usually office supplies for her office.
She hasn't spent that much this year.
She will,
She will?
she's
Okay.
very, yes.
Well, I noticed that $899.
$899, yeah, $898.
So it will be 900.
Yeah, that was through June. I think we've already gotten something else from her, like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Now, Stella, make sure she spends her budget.
Oh, she does.
All right.
Does anybody have anything about the historian? Okay. So the next are our reserve funds. So altogether, we're putting $82,000 into reserve funds this year. So I gave you a list that looks like this, if, to review and see if you wanted to keep them where they are. So I've given you the amounts in the last 3 budgets, and the last column in there is the balance in the reserve fund before the 2021 funding, of course. The only one that's off is the ambulance, because you just authorized using that $27,000. That's not reflected in here yet. So the ambulance, which is the last one on the first page, has 77,000. We're gonna take 27 out of that, so they have 50,000 in the reserve fund.
So how much were you projecting to take out of the reserve funds for this year?
So for the tax stabilization reserve funds, the A fund, tax stabilization reserve fund, has about $179,000 in it. And I projected for this budget using 89,000, that's half of it. The B fund has $155,000 in it, and I projected using 78,000 of that, which is half of it. So any further cuts that are made to the budget would be reductions in how much fund balance we're using, assuming that you're still 108,000 over the tax cap, 107,000 over the tax cap.
Those sanitation truck and vehicle reserve funds, I just want to point out that replacing those vehicles are hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think the one big truck is 300 and some thousand dollars. So, just making a point, not suggesting we do anything more or less, but,
That's a truck with the arm on the side of it?
yeah.
That truck's like the 2008 or something like that? Pretty old, right?
Yeah, it's not one of the newer ones, yeah.
And the road reconstruction reserve right now has 182,000, but some of that's being spent now on Krieger Road.
And Krieger, yeah.
Up to 100,000 you authorized.
You have two parkland reserve funds.
So there's one in the A fund and there's one in the trust and agency fund. So this goes back several years. During one of the audits, the auditors said that there were years past where the town actually budgeted for parkland reserve funds. So that was a tax, and it was the A fund that levied the tax. The other parkland reserve funds were parkland fees in lieu of,
Fee in lieu of parkland
Yeah.
that originated when I was on the planning board.
yes, that were part of projects, and those were recorded to the trust and agency fund. The ones that were raised through the budget were recorded to the A fund. That's why it's in two different funds.
And the trust and agency fund can only be used with the.
So the trust and
resolution?
agency funds can be used for anything, I think that is in the B fund, Fort Montgomery. The A fund can be used townwide.
Okay.
So if there was something up here, right, there's a little garden, I think, up the other end of town. If something needed, I think it was actually used for something up there once.
So do we have to reserve as much? for
We
the
don't,
coming
we
year?
don't fund them at all. The parkland, we're not funding either one of them.
How is the A1 funded? That's not coming out of the planning board reviews?
I haven't seen anything come into parkland fees in a long time, several years.
But if I'm
I'm
understanding,
thinking MRS was maybe the last one?
I think so, yeah.
okay. I was proud to say chairman of the planning board on that one, and that was something, he was grandfathered, and the owner still gave us $36,000, which is applied to Brooks's Park by the Ing administration. I'll take a little credit for that one, but
But if we wanted to tap into that,
You
take
could,
it out
yes.
under the circumstances. I mean, if we don't have any projects that we're looking at for the coming year, take a little bit out. Unless you got.
I'd have to pull out the resolution because there's, when resolutions are written to create reserve funds, there's ways that, for instance, the town hall repair reserve fund, you have to have a referendum before you can,
That's what I was asking about the.
right, so I don't know, they may have the words like capital project in there or something like that. I have them in my office, if you want me to check now, I can.
You don't have to do it right now, but if there's a way of taking some of those funds that are there, if there's no plans for the coming year,
And use them for what?
sure we can find something to use them for. You know, that would maybe meet the guidelines that they were set up for.
Let me just go grab them.
Okay.
you're talking about for the parkland.
Yeah.
The letter I just gave you is a draft from Justin. I'm sure when we get down to wages, we're gonna talk about it. So the letter hasn't been sent out, that's strictly a draft, we'd send it out to both unions.
Mhm.
Justin must be here. I hear the elevator.
And Justin can probably speak to the computer real quickly. So the resolution that created it, for the purpose of acquiring and maintaining of public parklands in the town of Highlands pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 6. So, and it says, and for no other purpose. So,
I'm gonna get myself in a little trouble here, which I like to do. When that was created, and Justin was a part of that, and I'm glad he's here, there was a group of people really pushing hard for that. And there was a project up on Tampson Lane where we applied it, and they ended up fighting back on it, and it was cut back a little bit. At that time, I made the same observation I'm gonna make now, which is that the town leases Brooks's, but aside from that, we don't really own any fields. Everything else is either the village or the school, and I never knew if there was a mechanism by which to use that money towards such things that other people might be in control of. So that's just why, I don't know how it's been spent since that time, but, you know, we have Brooks's down there, which we lease or pretend that we own it or whatever. Aside from that, we don't own any gymnasiums or
Right.
actual recreation buildings or anything like that. So I didn't know if over the years, like I think the dog kennel down at Brooks's, and some of the improvements that Inga made, I think they use that money toward that.
I think so.
I don't know where else we would use it, to be honest with you, so.
Well, the playground at Brooks is, even though it looks great, it's getting old. And the modern footing, we have like sawdust or whatever it is, the more modern stuff could be put down there too. So there's a use for it, we just have to sit down and figure out how to spend it and why.
But according to the verbiage, it doesn't sound like it could be used for new equipment or regular operational costs.
Well, so definitely not regular operational cost. Capital improvements to your parks would qualify.
So tearing out the playground and putting a new one in?
Yeah, I think something that would have a life of 20 years or 25 years,
okay.
that would qualify under a typical definition of acquisition costs.
But that's not helping us with the budget.
Operational would not be.
Not having the budget there, so.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was
it's
just- That was a fishing expedition. No fish. Okay. Thank you, Kelly.
you're welcome. Anybody else on reserve funds?
So we're not putting anything in this year?
No,
No.
no, we're not doing anything.
On the next page, then, special items,
Uh-huh.
does that include our insurance, and did you put a guesstimate in?
Oh, yes. Mhm. So, the next one is special items. So the insurance, I put in a 2% or 3% increase, hold on a minute. Oh, 5%. Scott still hasn't gotten back to us though, Bob, and I think we got everything he asked for to him. So I have a 5% increase in there. And I would be hesitant to take it out considering our, the year we have with claims.
So that would be the 119,000, or?
No, so there's a few different things on this
Oh,
budget.
okay.
So the first line is officials liability insurance, the second line is our general liability insurance. The third is the municipal dues. We know what that is, it's $1,600 for this year. MTA tax, that's 0.0034% of payroll. Other government support is blank, and then the contingent account, which really is the one that we need to discuss tonight, the two contingent accounts, A fund and B fund. Those are accounts that we budget for that are, just what they sound like. In case something comes up that we didn't budget for, we have money in a contingent account to cover any unforeseen expenses. On the bottom of this page, I put in what we've used in past years from it. Because you can't spend directly out of a contingent fund, which is why it all says zero. You have to do budget transfers out of that account. So the A fund, in 2018, we used 24,400. In 2019, we used 18,000. And so far this year, we've used 11,450. The B fund, we've never used.
You said last year we used how much again?
18,000 in 2019, and so far this year, we've used 11,450. And we budgeted 45,000 in the A fund.
What are some of the things that we used?
I think this year, we used it for the roof. Bob, does that sound right?
I think so, yes, yes.
I didn't print it out.
I don't know what we had in the town hall reserve fund. I think that was empty
The
too.
town, no, we have
No?
65,000 in the town hall reserve.
Oh, we did
fund.
have that?
Mhm.
Then I
It
don't
was
know
either
where-
the roof. I can go look it up if you want. Well, it
I
takes
think
a
you
second.
used some for the improvements, I believe.
Let me just go, it's easier.
What?
The entryway?
Yeah, I think so. If I remember correctly.
Well, if we haven't used anything out of the B account, contingent account, for the past couple of years, we haven't used anything yet, I would think that we could make a reduction there.
I'm thinking the same thing.
Okay.
Yes, which-
Mhm.
And even the heat fund maybe would come down some.
Yes.
Here comes
Based off of what we used this year and last year.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, 'cause we don't have any other areas that we can really gain any ground from. So we're supposed.
So Rich, you're saying where it's requested for the B fund for this year, 35,000?
Right.
Reduce that or zero it or?
I'd say reduce it. I mean, I'm just thinking, Bob, unless you feel we haven't spent anything out of that.
Yeah, we haven't spent it in 3 years, so,
So, my, under the circumstances,
Chief?
I mean, don't wipe it out completely, but
Maybe take $25. Chief?
I was thinking 20, but, we can talk about that.
that's yours, copy.
Would you feel the same way about the 45,000 for the A?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we take, yeah. 20 out.
Yeah, because she says we're still 100 over, right?
Yeah, we're not gonna make that.
I know.
No,
But if you're throwing 40 at it, that reduces it to 60.
Yep. Hmm.
I don't think there's anything dangerous about doing that based upon the past few years.
No, no. So what are we suggesting, taking,
You said 20 and 20, I think. What, Rich?
Yeah.
It's 40,000 our total.
see what Miss Kelly's got to say when she gets back. While you were gone, we decided we'd take 20 and 20 out of each one.
You take what?
20 and 20 out of each one. Does that sound bad, or?
No, I think it's fine. We used $4,700 for the roof, $6,000 for zoning board legal expenses,
That's right, yeah.
and $750 for zoning legal ads.
Okay.
So
So we'll take 20 and 20 out of each.
20 and 20 out of each. So we'll have 15,000 in the B fund and 25,000 in the A fund.
Yep.
Okay.
You said we're still 100 over, right? I just wanna make
Right
sure.
now, we're, yes. So that's 40,000. So there's a few different ways we can do this, and you tell me what you want to do. We can either reduce the amount of fund balance that you're using and keep it at 107 over the tax cap, or we can just make the cut, and then you're down to 67,000 over the tax cap, and use that same amount of fund balance in the budget that we have in there now, which is $277,000. So, you know, it's
I'll go for option B.
lower the amount you're over the tax cap. Okay. Everybody?
Well, I'm just thinking, next year, and we're going to exceed the tax cap this year. If you're thinking next year as to what number you're going to have to work with, if you have a higher number, then it might make things a little bit easier, not knowing what's going to happen next year, you know, with revenue and other expenses. So it might be better to keep the exceeding the tax cap high and come up with a higher budget so that when you go next year.
I think the effect on taxes is minimal between the 60 and 100.
It is.
But it'll give us a,
Well, it'll give us a better cushion
give us
to
a
work
bigger
with next
margin
year, yeah.
to work with next
Yeah.
year. So, I mean, that's just my thought,
No, well,
you know,
I welcome your opinion.
because we're going to exceed it now.
Either way, right?
Right.
So where it is now, it's for a Fort Montgomery resident, their tax bill on a $200,000 home would be about $113 higher with the $107,000 over the tax cap. A Highland Falls resident, it's $41. Approximately.
I would say leave it at 100 and something. I agree with Richie anyway.
Okay.
One Richie anyway. I don't know about the other one.
I'm sorry, what did you decide?
We didn't.
I didn't hear from you yet, though. What you think?
Present the two options to me again.
So
One
the
more
first
time.
option, so you're taking $40,000 out of the budget. You could either reduce the amount of fund balance you're using and keep it at 107,000 over the tax cap, or you could strictly reduce the amount you're over the tax cap by 40,000, and leave the amount of fund balance that you're using in this budget as is right now.
And what would be the effect upon next year by doing
If you-
option B?
If you're 107,000 over the tax cap this year, your tax levy for this year is higher, therefore, the amount you can levy for taxes next year is higher by that amount, incrementally
Okay, I
higher.
get it.
It does put you at a little bit of an advantage for a starting point for next year.
And it doesn't mean you have to spend it next year.
Yeah.
But at least you'd be more likely to come under the tax cap, all things staying equal. But-
And if things don't go well next year, you know, because no one knows what's
Right.
gonna happen, you have more fund balance available for next year.
And I think if things are as bad next year as they are this year, we're going to be under the tax cap next year. I mean, you know, that's hopeful thinking, but,
Option B.
Okay. So we'll keep it at 107.
Ty, you all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. The only other budget items we have to discuss, I don't know if you want to wait until afterwards, is salaries.
Yeah. Well, I gave you all the letter on, from Justin to the unions. I don't see, I mean, it's not up to me, but it's where the general salaries in the town hall, other than the unions, the town hall, and whatever else there is, won't be raised. But it would seem to some people unfair that the the salaries would be kept level in the town hall, but yet the two unions will get their normal raise. So the letter suggests to the unions that they have a little meeting and decide whether they want to work with the town, help the town out, and forego their raise for next year. The highway department is 2%, and the police department is 3.5%. So, and Kelly, did you have some numbers on those?
I did. So for the highway and sanitation contract employees, their 2% increase is, and I took the 2% increase plus the MTA tax on FICA, is about $13,000 for the year. The police, 3.5%. What I did was I took what we've paid so far this year to the police, and there's 6 pay periods left in this year. So I added 6 more pay periods and came up with a number for that. So their increase is about $19,000 for the year, based on my rough projection. And everybody else, if everybody else were to get a raise, that would be $14,000.
How much?
$14,000.
14,000.
And when I say everybody else, what I excluded from that number were town board members, zoning and planning board, board of assessment review, and all stipends.
And probably part-time or not?
I included part-time.
Okay. So if we're not going to give others a pay raise, then I suggest we solicit the unions to forego theirs. And if we are going to give others a pay raise, then we don't need to ask the unions. Whatever we think, guys. It's tough to be going over the tax cap and asking for raises, but,
I'll speak to that.
okay.
I'm on my 105th employer in 37 years, that I've said many times. I lost 2 months and 2 jobs during COVID-19. I do not wish that upon anybody. Nobody got laid off. We spent $14,000 for that new entryway down there, tried to make it safe. There were a lot of people home, they didn't have to worry about losing their jobs. That in and of itself, I think, is a wonderful thing. In my world, that doesn't happen. I'm glad that it happened here. No hard feelings. If nobody wants to do it, then we have to make a decision basically on the girls in the building getting 2% or 0, which amounts to 14,000, you said, right?
Yes. It's the town hall employees, it's the ambulance EMTs, it's the recreation employees, it's the clerk at the police department,
Mm-hmm.
it's the clerk at the highway department, it's the highway superintendent.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Again, nobody was furloughed, nobody was laid off, none of that happened. Everybody kept their jobs, and certainly we appreciate the people who had essential jobs that couldn't take time off. One of them is seated to my left, so, you know, certainly appreciate it. The other one's seated to my right.
Okay.
Rich, what do you think?
I think Rich hit it right on the head, that it's an unusual year all around, for many reasons. And the main thing is that all town employees were, in a sense, they were doing what they were supposed to, but they were also being taken care of. So I think that we can ask to spread a little bit of that pain all around. And
Ty?
Yeah, I don't disagree with these guys. However, I think if we're not able to gain that support from the unions, that I probably would lean towards the other direction, meaning compensate the people inside the building as well. That's just my position.
So we're not going to get an answer tonight if we're asking the unions to,
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
yeah.
And no,
I don't disagree with that at all.
absolutely no hard feelings, we're just putting it out there, and that's, see how it goes.
Okay, Justin, where you at?
Sir?
If you could enhance on that letter to the unions with the proper people, the PBA and the
Sure.
highway department, and I guess you're sending it to Baumgartner and,
Well, yeah, it's for your signature, so I'll prepare the letters and,
Okay.
and have it down to you tomorrow morning.
yeah, I was just gonna ask as soon as possible.
Yep, yep, no, I can do it first thing.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that's all I have for the budget. So what I'll do is, June, what was the date you put on the notice that the preliminary budget would be available?
30th, I believe.
So I'll run through these changes that we, it's only a few of them. And we'll leave all the salaries as they are right now. The budget includes the contractual raises and none others, so we'll just leave it at that. And that will become the preliminary budget. And I'll make it available by the 30th. Today's the
Yes, it was the 30th.
The 30th, so we'll have it ready by Friday. And then after the public hearing, there's still, you can still change the budget after the public hearing.
Mhm.
So, however this all plays out, whether anything changes or it stays as is, we have time.
Justin, in that letter, impress on them that we need an answer quickly.
Certainly.
I think you do have it in the last paragraph, but maybe a little stronger language.
Maybe a date.
Yeah, if you want to throw in a date.
Sure, so the public hearing's Monday, the 2nd,
Yes, the 2nd.
and the board intends to act.
To adopt the budget 2 weeks after that, I think it is.
Okay.
Oh, wait, here, I have my calendar right here. Oh, the 9th.
The 9th? Yeah, because just the
Regular
regular
board meeting.
scheduled meeting.
Right.
Okay. Sure, I'm not sure if I know who the current presidents of the unions are, but does someone in town know?
Brandon Hill is the PBA president.
Brandon, still PBA?
And I think Brian Falk.
No, I think it's
No.
Tim McCabe.
Tim McCabe.
Oh, yes, you're right, Tim McCabe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if we can track down emails, obviously, we could send this all by email tomorrow. I'll do my best.
dhill@tohpolice.com.
Okay.
Yeah, Justin, I think I have Tim's, I'll get it to you.
Okay, great.
All right, anything else on the budget? Then we'll go into our regular meeting. Any public comment? No, there isn't. Approval of the previous minutes. I have the minutes of Monday, October the 19th for your approval.
So,
You made the motion?
I
Second.
did.
All in favor?
All right,
So carried. Thank you.
thank you for sending them electronically.
Thank you for accepting them electronically.
Communications, I received a letter, which I don't think I can, I'll give you all a copy of it. It's two letters from Hank Kurtzky. One is to the superintendent of the USMA, and one is to the supervisor of the town of Highlands. He is basically complaining about Mine Road and wants it closed because people are speeding and throwing trash on the sides of the road. There are a lot of people up there that are using the parking off the side of the road and parking in that little parking place he has across the road from his house. I think he's talking about cars going 40, 50 miles an hour. I don't know if anybody's driven on that road, you don't do 40 miles an hour safely, whether you're fooling around or not. So we'll bring this up again and we'll talk about it. And I'll give you all a copy of his letter.
We have no ordinance on that part of that road, is that correct?
No ordinance.
So there's not like the lower part, parking, there's no parking signs or anything like that?
No, there is not.
At this time?
No.
Okay.
I know that I read the blotter for the weekend, there was a parking ticket issued where we were, so I know they're patrolling as they are directed every day, and I can assure you, if there was 70 cars on that road, there would have been 70 cars total. I've never seen 70 cars there, and I come in, one of the first things I do anymore now is I hit 9W, Park, 9 Dock, and Mine Road. So there was a parking ticket issue there, and they go right up to the military end, because we're aware of the complaints of speeding vehicles, and I have to be honest with you, I haven't even seen a fair amount of garbage out there. So I know they're there, I can assure you there's not 70 cars there.
And there's not a lot of garbage either.
There's not, no sir.
No. Any comments on that?
I know other times we've tried to, or we looked into closing the road, and
Mhm.
there's always an outcry that
Yeah.
it provides a relief, in the event something comes up.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, financial report. I paid out $110,218 on October the 22nd. The bigger items were Royal Karting at $2,360 for landfill charges. Expanded Supply Products, $2,196 for materials for Krieger Road. TAM received a check for $5,303 for sewer service and hauling sludge. Rockland County Solid Waste, $14,914 for sanitation. And Yvonne's Auto Repair got $3,500 for the Rowe Park Pool Shed. I don't know, Auto Repair getting, I guess they must sell them on the side or something
I
like
guess they
that.
do.
Okay. So that's the report. Do you have anything financial?
No, I don't have any budget transfers.
Okay.
Once the budget's done.
Okay, liaison reports, we'll start out with a busy man.
Well, good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone at home. So yeah, let me first start by talking about Aaron and Recreation. You probably saw the email where he was able to get the grant extended for the food program of distributing food to those who are in need. So that's good news. He still has not announced the time when we will resume that just yet. He said we'll be announcing it soon. Additionally, he's also working to get some pallets of water as a way to hopefully provide some relief due to the water shortage in the community. So more to follow on that. That's coming from the Director of Recreation. I just want to say that we had a couple events in the past couple of weeks that I believe, based off the feedback I'm getting from the community, was very well received. One was celebration of Hispanic Heritage the week before last, and then the breast cancer awareness event that we did this past Saturday, and which the supervisor was there at both of those. So, but the comments that I got from folks is that they really appreciated those two things that we have done in terms of your proclamation, and hope to see those types of things continue. And that's it for me tonight.
Wow.
So I think of tonight. I didn't get my normal feedback from all the directors.
I think one of the things you missed there was that Aaron estimated $100,000 worth of food was given out over the summer.
Was it $100,000?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I know he said by December he thinks we're gonna exceed 100 tons.
I thought it was $100,000.
Yeah, so one of our notes is screwed up. I don't know which one, probably mine though, but, so I'll go with the $100,000.
All right.
He
Councilman
said
Parry.
$100,000.
Huh? Dollars?
Yeah, by the end of December, it'll be over $100,000 in total food costs.
Yeah, see,
That's
so I
amazing.
probably didn't have, just like now, I didn't have my glasses on when I read that. I'm
Oh.
starting to realize I need them more.
Just like to again thank all the municipal employees in the community for the good work that they're doing in maintaining the services that are necessary. That includes people inside and also outside. And just remind the community that our water supply is low. We need some rain. People should be trying to conserve as much as they can, just so that we don't run out. So again, just remind everybody. That's all.
Councilman Sullivan?
Okay. Put together a few things quick. First of all, I haven't been in the building yet since he started a week ago. Our new chief building department head, Mr. John Zajac is here. I do know he's in tune with matters before the ZBA because they had their WebEx last Wednesday, which I logged in, then I logged out, then I logged in, then I logged out because I had poor cell service. And I know he's in tune with various matters before the ZBA right now. They had a public hearing that they left open. So John is familiar with all that, and I welcome him here. Along with him, the Secretary Jessica Walker is her last name, right? I'm gonna say Parker. Jessica Walker sent me something that I haven't had in a couple of months, which is a monthly report. And that's for the month of September. She did it for Philip Hannawalt. And in September, we had 38 permit applications were received, 42 permits were issued, 55 certificates of compliance and occupancy were issued. I think that's some kind of a record. 33 building permit inspections, 2 advisory notices were issued, 19 municipal searches were completed, 1 zoning variance application was received, 1 planning board application was received, 1 FOIL request, that's way down, thankfully, 10 total number of physical inspections, and 201, I have a conflict there, 201 total number of physical inspections, okay? So I'd just like to thank in the building department, been a little bit rough for the last couple of months, but between Philip, Jessica and John now, we're at full force, and I think the learning curve is gonna be pretty rapid, so I think we're gonna be doing just fine in there. The water district, Richie touched upon it, with being low out at Bog Meadow, and I've been out there a lot, it's low. And I did meet with Pat Patterson and Greg Moore about a week and a half ago to discuss that, and just the different things they have going on. Went up to Corbin Hill, ordered the plant up there, wanted to see with my own eyes where our money is being spent. Everything up there is propane, no diesel fuel, so you don't have to worry about any spillage or anything like that. And I believe at some point, I think we have money in the budget. Greg, I believe, needs to get his level D water operator's certificate like Ryan Falk did now that he's a foreman. So that'll be happening. And with the ZBA, I spoke with Chairman Janarone about one thing he emailed me that I didn't share with the board yet or with Justin. With our escrow, ability to obtain escrows with the ZBA, he sent me whatever the resolution or law is. It needs to be looked at because there's some mechanisms in there by which people don't have to pay up as the process goes on, which we need to address. And I'll leave any further comments to Justin. I'll send the email out that he sent. We need to address that. That's it, sir?
I had an alibi now that you stimulated my brain there, Supervisor. In terms of the events that we've been doing with the proclamations, I just want to definitely give a shout out to Ms. June Patterson, Ms. Leslie Peterson for their support anytime I reach down and ask them for help. And it amazes me how quick they can turn stuff around, so definitely want to say thanks to them. Secondly, I want to give Highland Falls mayor and board leadership there a shout out. I went to an event that was a dedication of part of Center Street to the late Command Sergeant Major retired Dr. Reverend Moses Carter. As you know, he lived down there in that lane. They've changed that to his name and highway kind of thing. But the whole event was well done, and I was present to be there to see that. And third, I forgot to tell you about an exciting night of hanging out with our chief of police out at the police academy. Went out there and they had a wonderful presentation about community engagement, particularly as it pertains to a shooting of some sort with the police and the civilian sector, and they gave them from a legal standpoint. And then they allowed us to use the simulator and go through the scenario that a police officer may have to go through. And it certainly is an eye-opener when you get in there. My scenario was a school. And, so it's an active shooter scenario. It's inside a school. You got kids running at you because they're trying to get out of the building. And then you're putting yourself in the mind of an officer. I go into this room. There's one guy with a bat, says he's not going to put the bat down. I tell him to put the bat down. There's a guy on the floor who I think is a victim of the guy with the bat. And as I'm focused on this guy with the bat, the guy on the ground turns around and shoots me twice. So it makes you really think about the kind of pressures that these guys are under when they go out. So Chief, thanks for that training, and continue to say that you guys are one of the best forces this side of the Hudson River. Now that's it this time.
All right, okay. And since we're talking about the chief, do you have something for us?
I guess the only thing to really talk about is how 9W's been. As you know, in the last few weeks, we had a motorcyclist on his bike, and he went over the side of the mountain, about 250 feet or so, and he lived. The following week, about a week and a half later, we had a car go over the side of the mountain, and by the grace of God, that woman lived. And then the following next morning, we had an 11-car pileup southbound on 9W. So I actually just got off the phone with the engineer today. There are two signs on each side of 9W, one on the Cornwall side and one on our side. And he's gonna let us have access. So our midnight, we'll be checking the mountain every hour like they do. So fog condition, they'll call the Westchester location and they'll put up reduced speed, fog ahead. I don't know if it's gonna help. We've increased mostly in the flats, but it's really a tough time for you to do any kind of enforcement on those turns. It's just as dangerous for the officers. I've actually even spoken recently at a motorcycle accident with Chief Hazard. But we are gonna do the best we can to try to slow people down. So hopefully the people understand when they're rushing, they see fog ahead, they'll reduce their speed. So between that foggy weather, the slick roadway, the leaves, when the truck went off the mountain, I left my home to come up there. It was bright, sunny, and dry. By the time I got to the mountain, it was foggy, rainy, and wet. So people have to assume that it's not always going to be the same at the top as it is at the bottom. But we will keep enforcing it and do our best. So I have to thank you. And thank you for coming last week. It was very good.
Chief, while I've got you,
Sure.
there's a tractor trailer parked in the parking lot next door to me. I gave him permission to
Okay.
stay overnight, and he's...
I told them that they would have to reach out. Yep, and they
Yeah.
said they were going to reach out to you.
Okay.
Chief, was this
Sure.
memorandum something you needed the board to consider tonight?
It doesn't have to be tonight, no, sir. But that's why we just wanted to give
But
it
it
to you.
did look fine to me.
Okay, I'll forward it to everybody. And it's what happens is, now we do virtual arraignments, and they're only during certain hours. So if you have a situation where you have to wait for the judge, meaning that we have no cells, we would be babysitting somebody through the entire night. If all the paperwork is done, we can bring the paperwork and the person to the sheriff's office. They'll lodge them, do the virtual arraignment, and in the morning. The only thing we would have to do if the person's released, pick them up. It's a lot easier to pick somebody up than have maybe one or two people sit continuously through the night and then bring somebody in for patrol. So I got the memorandum from the sheriff's office, and for a small operation like ours, it's probably beneficial to sign. We don't have to use it every time, just when we need to. But I'll forward it to everyone.
Okay. I think I sent this out to everyone. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. This is a bulletin, or if you will, from the Department of Health. The most important part of it that I want, and I did send this out to all the department heads in the building. The question is, if I'm not an essential worker, can I travel to one of the designated states for vacations or to see my family? Yes. However, upon your return, you will be required to quarantine when you enter New York for 14 days from the last day you were in that designated state, pursuant to Executive Officer 202-45. And any New York State resident who voluntarily travels to a designated state for travel and was not taking part of the person's employment or at the direction of the person's employer will not be eligible for benefits under the New York COVID-19 paid sick law. So in other words, if somebody decides they want to go down to Florida to see their aunt or uncle, when they get back, they're out of work for 14 days and they will not be getting paid for it. They will be using their sick time. Do you have any comments come back on that ever since we mailed it out?
No.
Two of our councilmen mentioned the water shortage. I'll make it, the supervisor mentioned it. The mayor declared a state of emergency in Highland Falls because of the water shortage. I'm very surprised the number of people that asked me, what's going on, right? Is this really true, or are they fooling around? They didn't want to believe it. God, think about it, we haven't had a decent rainfall. Oh, it rained the other day. Well, that little bit of rain, that the drop in the bucket, well, it's a drop in the reservoir. So I hope more and more people believe and take it serious. Justin, you're on.
Tax certiorari. So one of your tax certiorari's, it's 62 Onondaigua Parkway. The assessor and myself and the school district have entered into negotiations, but we can't come to any conclusive arrangement, so the judge wants to see us move forward with appraisals. That's normal when you can't get to a resolution. The town and the school district typically share that cost. This is an appraiser we haven't used before, but I know of them and they have a good reputation. And they gave a fair proposal. So before you have a resolution to authorize the retainer agreement for the tax certiorari on 62 Onondaigua Parkway.
Okay, whereas the appraising firm of Hudson Valley Appraisal Corporation has offered to provide appraisal services related to the inspection of the single-family resident at 62 Onondaigua Parkway in connection with a tax certiorari proceeding. Whereas the agreement anticipates an approximate cost of $2,500 for 2 tax years, with additional charges if court time is required, all of which fees would be split between the town of Highlands and the Highland Falls Fort Montgomery Central School District. Whereas the town board has reviewed the terms and conditions of the aforesaid agreement and now finds the agreement acceptable. Be it resolved that the town of Highlands supervisor is authorized to enter into for and on behalf of the town of Highlands the agreement, that the supervisor is hereby authorized and empowered to make, execute, deliver, cause to be made, executed, and delivered in the name of and behalf of the town all such certificates, agreements, documents, and papers that may be necessary to effectuate and carry out the contents of the foregoing resolutions and agreements, that the aforesaid resolution shall take effect immediately. Do I have a motion to move the resolution?
Motion?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry?
Aye.
Supervisor Lozey?
Aye. Okay, I have a resolution, 2 resolutions. I'll start out with the one. Come on. Start out with the one on water. The town of Highlands Whereas the town of Highlands levied a water charge for 2019 and 2020 payable semi-annually in November 2019 and May 2020, whereas certain charges remain unpaid, although the time for their payment has passed. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Highlands Town Board requests the Orange County legislature re-levy and include within its 2021 warrant the receiver of taxes, town of Highlands for the county and town taxes, the 2019 and 2020 unpaid water charges of the town of Highlands Water District 1 and the town of Highlands Water District 2 as set forth in the list annexed hereto in the amount of $68,752.53. I'll ask for a motion to move the resolution.
Motion?
Second.
June?
Councilmember Sullivan?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry?
Aye.
Supervisor Livesey?
Okay, the same verbiage, which I won't bother to bore you with reading over again. The 2020 unpaid sewer charges of the Fort Montgomery Sewer Improvement Area as set forth in the list here too on the amount of $45,802. Move the resolution.
Motion?
Second.
June?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Councilmember Sullivan?
Aye.
Councilmember King?
Aye.
Councilmember Perry?
Aye.
Supervisor Livesey?
Aye.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are those numbers higher than normal?
They are comparable to last year.
They are?
They are.
So they're not significantly higher than last year?
No.
Okay.
I asked the same question to her when she came out with them. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure how versed in this is that the town board is. Justin, you sent us a memorandum
Yep.
on cell towers, land use regulations. Do you want to
Sure.
bring that up at this meeting? And
However you'd like to handle it, I'm happy to sort of condense it and give a report or give it in total detail, whatever you prefer.
well, the only reason I'm asking is the first line says client confidential memorandum.
Oh, that's, yeah, I add that to certain things, just so that it's clear that, even though if I'm talking about it, it would breach that, but, certain things aren't subject to FOIL. But this has nothing that is, this has no decision-making in it, this just outlines the process, so
Okay.
I'm happy to discuss it.
Yes, please.
I don't know if I sent it in time for copies to be made, but I brought copies for the board. Richie?
Sorry.
I have a copy.
You do?
So in essence, I understand at least that there's some inquiries about a potential cell tower. This is not about the particulars of any agreement in that regard. This is about the current zoning in the village of Highland Falls. So should the board contemplate an agreement for a cell tower or some other use on property that they own, but that happens to be in the village of Highland Falls, typically the standard is it is subject to zoning, but there is a balancing of interest test that can be performed. That was a 1988 Court of Appeals case, the highest court in the state of New York, that laid out factors to determine whether or not a municipality needs to follow its own zoning. For instance, when the police were relocated from the trailer to the emergency services building, the town did not go through a zoning approval process. Rather, they did this balancing of equities or balancing of interest tests, and they determined that the need for emergency services and police work in that instance was more important than following local zoning. So should you want to potentially put a cell tower on your property in Highland Falls, or at some point your property in the town, you'd have to go through this analysis to see whether the balance of interests come out favorable to either go through zoning or avoid zoning. The factors are listed in my memo. I won't read them all. There's no priority given by the court. It's not one of these 9 factors is more or less important than the others. You're supposed to look at them all. In this instance, if you were doing something at the highway garage, the board that does the balancing of interest test would be the village board. So, coincidentally, they changed their wireless communications law this year. Presumably, they did a balancing of interest test and they exempted themselves, the village of Highland Falls, from zoning for wireless communications if they undertake it in the village of Highland Falls. If you ask them, they would have to take these factors into consideration and make a determination. They could say yes, right? What they said was they had police emergencies and they had trouble reaching their emergency services and they wanted the ability to have more cell service in the village. One would think the analysis would be similar if you make that request of them, but because you're not the same municipality, they don't have to make the same determination. Nevertheless, whether they say yes or no, right, that wouldn't necessarily end the process. If they say no, you have to go through zoning, then it's an application to the Consolidated Planning Board under the village code for how you properly site wireless communications in the village. So, am I talking too vaguely, or I'm trying to be straightforward? They'd have to perform the analysis, right? You'd have to ask them to perform the balancing of interest tests. They've done it once for themselves recently. Obviously thought it was important enough for them to do, but again, because you're not the same municipality and the law didn't say all municipalities, right? It used very specific language exempting the village of Highland Falls and saying that other municipalities would have to comply with zoning or go through this balancing of interests.
So this is something the town of Highlands would do, not Verizon?
So, with respect to if you are requesting the village to do a balancing of interest inquiry, that would be a request from this board, municipality to municipality. If you are choosing to go through zoning or the village requires you to go through zoning, that could be done by any applicant. And that is a typical process in the planning board world where the person who wants the end use goes through the application process, makes the appearance before the board, makes all the requests. The owner of property gives a proxy or an endorsement to allow whatever engineering group or whatever wireless provider would be doing this, the ability to go through the application. But the request for the balancing of interest, because it can only be waived for municipalities. They couldn't waive it for individuals. That request would be from you. So it depends on the route you're choosing. I don't know why you wouldn't ask them to perform the Monroe balancing of interest test, since that's what they did for themselves.
Okay.
If they say no, then you can have any wireless provider make an application to the planning board.
Did I send this to the town board?
You did a while back, I remember getting an email.
And this has got the drawing. Anyway, it's only one paragraph. Verizon Wireless has reviewed their lease assessment evaluation for the, in quotes, Highland Falls site at the town highway garage, and is prepared to offer $9,600 per year with a 10% term escalator. The initial term would be 5 years, followed by 4 additional 5-year terms. For the 144 square foot lease space located as shown on the attached revised lease exhibit drawing. The drawing has been updated to address the ground equipment requirements implemented by the Verizon Wireless engineering team. The proposed change essentially updates the telecom yard from 10 by 10 foot area to a 12 by 12 foot area to provide required clearances for ground cable. The lease also includes a 20-foot wide easement and a 5-foot wide underground utility easement servicing the antenna pole and the ground support equipment. They're going to follow up with a phone call as they're moving along. I turned this over to Pat to see how it fits in with him and his equipment and where they pose it. He has some questions, so I'm going to call Titanic up and have them come in and sit down with me, Pat, and Justin.
Sure.
Okay, and anyone else that would like to be at the meeting. Any questions or comments on it?
The way that the easement would be worded would mean everything. Because it's going around the salt shed, going from the north end of the building around the salt shed to the back end, if I'm looking at it correctly. So I'm not quite sure what the terms of that easement would be. That's pretty much gonna be everything to help you make a decision.
And that's Pat's question also, yes. And he'd rather see the wiring and lines go underground rather than above ground, which is obvious, and you don't need them anyway. But the way they put it, I mean, everybody looks at a tower, and they're talking about a pole, so I'm not sure exactly what this thing would look like when it's put up. And at the town garage site, there's really not that much up there to ruin somebody's view shed or any of those things. Any questions on it? No. Any other business?
Oh, I have one thing, unless you wanna do it. Our camera girl isn't here.
Yeah.
And the reason she isn't here is because she had a baby the other day. And I think the baby's name is Alice Catherine. I just want to congratulate Tierney on her baby.
Yeah, okay. Wait a minute, now you brought that up.
You better have gotten the name right.
This is the child.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Cameraman, can you get a close-up shot of this?
Bring it onto the camera.
Okay, you can bring it to the camera, or you can zoom in on the camera. Did she show you how to zoom in?
Well, you can't zoom in that far.
Oh, come on.
Very good.
Okay, congratulations to Tierney and
Her husband?
and the husband. Yeah, he had something to do with it. Ask for motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried, thank you. Turn this off, please.
Hold on. Let me turn you off on my end too.